Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're plunging into a really fascinating, but yeah, ultimately tragic story from early 20th century Britain. This all came about from a listener's curiosity, actually.
That's right. We've got some sources here detailing the life and, well, the crimes of a certain Frederick Henry Seddon.
Yeah, set in. We're going to be exploring how this guy, who seemed like just, a regular insurance superintendent, maybe a bit of a side business going on,
Uh-huh.
how he ended up hanged for poisoning his lodger, Eliza Mary Barrow, with arsenic.
It's quite the story. It's filled with these unsettling little details and some really surprising twists and turns.
Okay, let's get into this then. We'll look at the circumstances around Eliza Barrow's death, obviously the evidence that pointed towards Seddon,
Right.
and yeah, some genuinely strange things that came out during the trial. And for you listening, this isn't just going to be a dry history lesson.
Yeah, totally not.
We want to unpack the motivations, the kind of social context of the time, and those darker bits of human behavior that, well, led to this crime.
You might have a few aha moments, hopefully, as we sort of piece together how it all happened and see how tiny details suddenly become, massively important.
So let's start with the man himself, Frederick Seddon.
Okay. So Frederick Henry Seddon, born in Liverpool, January 21st, 1872.
Right.
He married Margaret Ann Jones in 1893. They went on to have 5 children. His father also lived with them, which is, part of that household setup.
Okay, standard enough so far. But here's where it gets a bit weird, maybe. In 1905, he and his father visited the Metropolitan Police's Black Museum.
Yeah, that's the collection of crime artifacts, right?
Yeah.
And crucially, it wasn't actually open to the general public.
Exactly. So why were they there? We don't know. The sources don't say.
It makes you wonder, doesn't it, what kind of fascination was going on there? A bit unsettling.
It really is. And there's another thread, the Freemasonry thing.
Ah, yes. He was initiated into a lodge in 1901, but then resigned just a year later, apparently when he moved house. But then, in 1905, he pops up again as a founding petitioner for another lodge, only to resign from that one, too, in 1906.
So in and out twice in just a few years. What do we make of that? Is it just someone trying to climb the social ladder, maybe? Or something else?
It could be social maneuvering, yeah. Or maybe just a pattern of, joining things and then dropping them. Hard to say for sure, but it adds another layer to his character. It kind of suggests instability.
Yeah.
Or maybe just opportunism.
Interesting. Okay, so let's fast forward a bit. 1909. He buys this big house, 14 rooms, at 63 Tollington Park in London.
Right. And he's working as a superintendent of collectors for an insurance company. Seems respectable.
On the surface, yeah. But the sources say he had this obsession with making money.
Uh-huh. He wasn't just relying on the insurance job. He was running a secondhand clothes business on the side, technically, in his wife's name.
Ah.
And also dabbling in real estate speculation.
Yeah.
Seems like he was always looking for an angle, always trying to make an extra quid.
And this drive for money seems to lead to the next step, the plan. He starts advertising to let out the second floor of this big London house.
And the aim, it seems pretty clear now, was basically to find someone vulnerable they could, well, swindle.
Which brings us to Eliza Mary Barrow.
Exactly. Eliza Mary Barrow, she was 47, a spinster, described as eccentric, and conveniently, she lived nearby already.
A near neighbor. And she moves in when?
July 26, 1910. She brings with her an 8-year-old boy, Ernest George Grant. He was her ward.
A ward.
Yeah, an orphan whose parents had been friends of hers. She'd taken him in.
Okay. And why was she moving?
She was looking for somewhere cheaper to live than where she was staying with her cousin, a man named Frank Vondera.
Right. So she needed accommodation, but she seems, well, vulnerable.
The sources say she was easily led, which is just heartbreaking. But also, and this is key,
Yes.
she was apparently just as interested in making money as Seddon was. Maybe not in the same obsessive way, but she saw this as potentially good financial arrangement, too.
Oh, right. So that shared interest, that desire for financial security or gain, was something Seddon could exploit.
Precisely. He zeroed in on that. He managed to persuade her to sign over controlling interest in, well, pretty much everything she had. Savings, annuities.
Including that India stock.
Yes, £1,500 worth of India stock.
Yeah.
Which back then was a very decent amount of money. A substantial investment.
Wow. And what did she get in return for signing all that over?
The promise.
Mm.
He promised he'd take care of her for the rest of her life, give her a small annuity, like a pension,
Uh-huh.
and of course, let her live in the house rent-free.
It sounds incredibly one-sided when you put it like that.
It really does. She basically handed over her capital for a promise of future care.
Okay, so she moves in, signs over her assets, then fast forward about a year. August 1911.
Yes, things seem almost normal for a bit. The Seddons, Eliza Barrow, and the young boy Ernest, they all go on holiday together to South End.
Like a family trip.
Exactly. But it's right after they get back from this seemingly normal holiday. That's when a crucial, though seemingly tiny, event happens.
Which is?
Seddon's daughter Maggie is sent out to buy a packet of flypaper, just a 3-penny packet from the local chemist.
Flypaper. Okay. I mean, people used that back then, didn't they? Sticky paper to catch flies.
They did. Utterly mundane purchase, you'd think. But it becomes absolutely central later on.
Right. Because shortly after this holiday and the flypaper purchase, Eliza Barrow gets sick.
Very sick. She started suffering from these agonizing stomach pains, just awful by all accounts.
Did they call a doctor?
Yes, a local doctor came, Dr. Ernest Wilby. He initially prescribed bismuth and morphine, thinking it was maybe some kind of gastric issue. He came back a few days later.
And was she better?
No, by the following Monday, she was much worse. But she apparently refused point blank to go to a hospital.
Why? Any idea?
The sources don't really specify her reasons, just that she refused. Maybe distrust, maybe fear. We don't know. Her condition kind of went up and down a bit, but she was stuck in bed.
And then the will.
Yes. On September 13th, just one day before she died, she makes a will.
Okay.
And guess who dictates it and handles the execution?
Let me guess. Frederick Seddon.
Bingo. And the witnesses, his relatives, his wife and father, I believe.
Oh, come on. That screams conflict of interest, doesn't it? The person benefiting is the one writing it down and getting his family to witness.
It raises massive red flags, absolutely.
Yeah.
A clear abuse of her trust and vulnerability at that point.
Unbelievable. And then she dies the next morning.
The morning of September 14th, Mrs. Seddon was apparently looking after her at the time.
And the death certificate. You mentioned something about that earlier.
Right. Seddon goes straight to Dr. Wilby, and the doctor issues the death certificate without coming back to see the body.
What? How is that even possible?
The doctor's excuse was that he was completely overworked because there was some kind of epidemic sweeping the area, diphtheria, I think. He basically took Seddon's word for it that she'd passed away from her ongoing illness.
That seems incredibly lax. Even for then, surely.
It does seem highly irregular, yes. And very convenient for Seddon.
Okay, so Eliza's dead. Seddon has the death certificate. What happens immediately after?
Well, things move suspiciously fast. The very next day, September 15th, Seddon arranges the funeral.
Already?
Yes. And it's a strikingly cheap funeral. He even apparently got a small commission from the undertaker. Pocketed it himself.
You're kidding. He made money off her funeral after taking everything else.
It appears so. And adding insult to injury, she was buried in a common plot. Basically an unmarked grave shared with others.
But didn't her family have their own plot?
Yes. The Vonderes, her cousins, had a family vault in Highgate Cemetery West, a proper resting place.
So why the common grave? Did Seddon give a reason?
He did, but it sounds incredibly flimsy. He claimed that Eliza's family, the Vonderes, had snubbed his daughter at some point, so he wasn't going to use their vault.
That sounds like a pathetic excuse to save money and cut ties quickly.
It certainly feels self-serving and, frankly, quite callous.
And then the holiday.
Ah, yes. The cherry on top of the suspicion Sunday? Immediately after this quick, cheap funeral, the entire Seddon family packs up and goes back to South End.
Back to South End.
For another 2-week holiday.
Wow. Just days after their lodger died under their roof and was buried in a pauper's grave. That's bold.
It's incredibly suspicious behavior, isn't it? Understandably, this really set off alarm bells for Eliza's cousin, Frank Vondera. The sudden death, the rushed, cheap funeral, the family disappearing.
Yeah, you definitely start asking questions. Did Vondera confront Seddon?
He did. He tried to inquire about Eliza's estate, what she'd left behind.
And Seddon's response?
Seddon claimed there was basically nothing left. He said it had all been eaten up by funeral expenses and the cost of looking after the boy Ernest Grant.
After he'd already taken her life savings in stock.
Precisely. Vondera wasn't buying it. He and his family went straight to the police.
Good for them. That must have been the turning point.
It was. That decision led directly to the next crucial step. The exhumation.
Right, digging up the body. When did that happen?
November 15th, 1911. So about 2 months after her death.
And the autopsy. Who did that?
Sir William Wilcox, who was a top Home Office toxicologist and a rising star pathologist named Bernard Spilsbury.
Spilsbury. Wasn't he involved in the Crippen case around that time?
Exactly. He was fresh off that very famous case. He was becoming quite well known.
And what did they find?
They found the smoking gun. arsenic. About 2 grains of it still present in the body.
2 grains? Is that a lot? Like, medically speaking.
It might not sound like much, but
Uh-huh.
yes, chemically speaking, 2 grains is a significant amount. Definitely considered a potentially lethal dose, especially administered over time. This was the hard evidence they needed.
So with the arsenic found, Seddon and his wife must have become the prime suspects.
Absolutely. It shifted from suspicion to a full murder investigation, focused squarely on them.
And it went to trial.
Oh, yes. A major trial at the Old Bailey, London's main criminal court. It got a lot of press coverage.
Who led the prosecution?
The Attorney General himself, Sir Rufus Isaacs, KC. Which shows how seriously the authorities were taking it.
And what was their main line of argument?
They hammered home Margaret Seddon's purchase of that flypaper, that large quantity bought just before Eliza got sick.
Right.
The argument was clear. They soaked the flypapers in water to extract the arsenic and then administered it to Eliza.
And the defense. Who was defending Seddon?
The famous Edward Marshall Hall, KC. A brilliant, often dramatic barrister. He was known for pulling rabbits out of hats.
What was his strategy?
He fought hard against the poisoning narrative. His main argument was that Eliza Barrow might have died from accidentally, or perhaps even deliberately, taking some kind of patent medicine or medical preparation that, unbeknownst to her, contained arsenic.
Trying to introduce doubt about the source of the arsenic.
Exactly. Reasonable doubt was his goal. But then came a really critical moment.
Uh-oh.
Seddon himself. Against Marshall Hall's explicit advice, he insisted on testifying, taking the stand in his own defense.
Ooh, why? Why would he do that if his own lawyer told him not to? Arrogance.
It seems like it. Overconfidence, perhaps. A belief he could charm or outwit the court. Whatever the reason, it backfired spectacularly.
How so?
Well, reports from the trial say his attitude on the stand was just awful. Arrogant and condescending are the words used. He apparently alienated the jury completely.
Did he say anything specific that damaged him?
His explanation for how Eliza might have ingested arsenic from flypaper was just ridiculous. He suggested she might have drunk water from the saucers where the flypapers were soaking.
What? Like, deliberately or accidentally?
He seemed to imply accidentally, maybe, as if it were just lying around and she took a sip.
Ugh.
It was seen as totally preposterous and just made him look foolish and, well, guilty.
Yeah, that sounds like it would sink him. What was the verdict?
The jury didn't take long, only about an hour of deliberation.
Wow. That's fast for a murder trial.
It is. They found Frederick Seddon guilty.
And his wife, Margaret?
She was acquitted, found not guilty of any involvement.
Interesting. And Marshall Hall, the defense lawyer, what did he think afterwards?
He apparently remained convinced for the rest of his life that Seddon would have been acquitted if only he had listened and kept his mouth shut, stayed off the witness stand.
Shows how much your own testimony and demeanor can matter, doesn't it?
Hugely.
Mm.
It might have been the single biggest factor in his conviction.
Okay, so guilty verdict. Then comes the sentencing. And this part is, well, it's extraordinary.
It really is one of the most remarkable moments in British legal history, I think.
So the judge asks Seddon if he has anything to say before the death sentence is passed, which is standard procedure.
Right. And Seddon, remembering he's a former Freemason, makes a direct appeal to the judge,
Who was?
Sir Thomas Townsend Bucknell, the presiding judge. And crucially, Judge Bucknell was also a Freemason.
No way.
Yes. And Seddon apparently knew this. He stood up and addressed the judge, reportedly using specific Masonic terminology.
Like,
The phrase, the great architect of the universe, which is a key Masonic reference to God. And some accounts suggest he might have even made Masonic signs or gestures.
trying to appeal to their shared bond, begging for mercy based on being brothers.
Essentially, yes. Begging the judge, as a fellow Mason, to somehow intervene or overturn the jury's guilty verdict. It's just jaw-dropping.
I can't even imagine. What did the judge do? How did he react?
Judge Bucknell's response was incredibly powerful, and reportedly very emotional. He explicitly acknowledged their shared connection.
He mentioned the brotherhood.
He did. He said something to the effect of, "It pains me beyond words to have to say what I am saying," acknowledging their fraternity. But then he delivered the crucial line.
Which was?
He said, "But our brotherhood does not encourage crime, it condemns it."
Wow. Drawing a clear line between fraternal loyalty and the law.
Absolutely. He made it absolutely clear that their shared membership offered no protection from justice for such a heinous crime. He then told Seddon to try and make his peace with his maker.
And pronounced the death sentence.
And pronounced the death sentence. It's such a dramatic courtroom scene.
It really is. And what about Spilsbury, the pathologist? You mentioned he wasn't a Mason.
Right. Bernard Spilsbury was present, having given that key forensic evidence. But he wasn't a Freemason at that time.
Mm.
Apparently, he witnessed this whole exchange between Seddon and the judge, but didn't fully grasp the Masonic significance of the words and gestures.
But others did.
Oh, yes. His colleagues in the forensic world who were Masons apparently understood exactly what was happening. It just adds another layer of intrigue to the whole event. It really shows you a glimpse into the sort of hidden social structures of that era.
Definitely. So the appeal failed. Seddon was sentenced to death.
And he was hanged at Pentonville Prison on April 18th, 1912.
And what happened to his wife, Margaret, and the children? She was
Right.
acquitted, right?
Yes, Margaret was acquitted, but what she did next is, well, also raises some eyebrows.
Oh.
She remarried very quickly, less than 7 months after Seddon was executed.
7 months? That seems fast.
It does. And soon after remarrying, she moved with her 5 children to the United States, left Britain behind entirely.
You can read that different ways, I suppose. Starting fresh, or maybe distancing herself. It inevitably makes you wonder again about what she might have known, doesn't it?
It does leave a lingering question mark, certainly.
So wrapping this up then, what are the main things we should take away from this deep dive into the Seddon case?
Well, I mean, first and foremost, it's just a chilling example of how greed, that obsession with money Seddon had, can completely warp someone's morality and lead them down a path to, well, to murder.
Yeah, the manipulation of Eliza Burrow is just awful.
And it shows how seemingly small things, like buying a packet of flypaper, can become pivotal pieces of evidence. That, combined with his own arrogance in court and all the suspicious behavior after her death, it all built an inescapable case against him.
For you listening, it's really worth thinking about the role of character here, isn't it?
Absolutely. How did that obsession with money make him so blind to the risks? Or maybe just so callous? And how much did his personality, that arrogance, actually influence the jury?
It tells us a lot about, human nature, both the capacity for calculated cruelty and how personality flaws can lead to self-destruction.
Definitely. It's a dark story, but a fascinating one from that perspective.
And that final point, that truly bizarre moment in the sentencing, the Masonic appeal.
Yeah.
The fact that this shared private bond was invoked right there in open court during a murder sentencing. And the judge's response.
It's extraordinary. It gives you such a stark glimpse into, well, a different world, a different time.
Yeah.
And it really makes you think about the limits of loyalty, the demands of justice. Where do those lines get drawn?
What do you make of that really unusual, intensely dramatic moment? It definitely leaves you with something to think about, doesn't it? About how personal connections and the formal justice system can sometimes collide in unexpected ways.